patrol ship Van Kesh drifted at the edge of the Kalith border zone, its long, insect-like hull catching the dim light of a red dwarf star. Commander Isran Val stood on the bridge, watching the sensor screens with tired eyes. For 3 years he had commanded this patrol route, and for 3 years, nothing interesting had ever happened here. The border zone was empty space, far from any inhabited world, a quiet stretch of stars that the Kalith Empire used as a buffer between itself and the unknown regions beyond. Isran was proud of his people. The Kalith were an old species, tall and thin, with hard shells covering their backs and long fingers built for delicate work. They had built a peaceful empire across dozens of star systems, ruled by careful laws and old traditions. They avoided war when they could. They had seen what war did to other species, and they wanted no part of it. But they had also heard the stories. Every Kalith child grew up hearing whispers about the humans. Nobody in this part of the galaxy had ever met a human face to face, but everyone had heard the rumors passed along trade routes and diplomatic channels. Humans were said to be short-lived, quick to anger, but somehow always victorious in every conflict they entered. Some said they had fought a war against another empire, and won so completely that the losing side gave up their entire fleet without another shot fired. Others said humans never started fights, but once a fight started, they never seemed to stop until the enemy simply had nothing left to fight with. Isran did not know how much of this was true. He assumed most of it was exaggeration, the kind of story that grows bigger every time someone repeats it. Humans were probably just another species, he told himself, no different from the dozen other alien races the Kalith had already met. Powerful in some ways, weak in others, just like everyone else. That was what he believed, right up until the moment his sensor officer, a younger Kalith named Dessa, called out from her station. "Commander, I have a contact. Small ship, unknown design, drifting near the edge of our detection range." Isran walked over to her station and looked at the screen. The ship was small, barely larger than a Kalith patrol vessel, but its shape was strange. It had smooth curved lines, unlike anything built by any species he recognized. No weapons were visible on its hull, at least none that Kalith sensors could detect. "Life signs?" Isran asked. Dessa adjusted her instruments. "I am reading very faint energy signatures from inside the hull. The ship appears to be running on minimal power. No response to our hailing signals. Could it be a derelict? A ship that lost its crew somehow?" "Possible, Commander. But the engines are still warm. Something powered this ship recently." Isran felt a small knot form in his stomach. An unknown ship, of unknown design, drifting silently near Kalith territory, was exactly the kind of thing that could start real trouble if handled badly. He thought about calling this in to Fleet Command and waiting for orders, but that would take hours, maybe longer, and in the meantime the mystery ship could simply drift away into deep space and be lost forever. "Bring us closer," Isran ordered. "Slow and careful. I want full scans the moment we are in range." The Van Kesh moved forward, its engines humming quietly. As the distance closed, more details of the strange ship became visible. Isran noticed strange markings along the hull, symbols he did not recognize, along with a design that looked almost like letters from an old alphabet. There was something written in bold characters near the front of the ship. None of the Kalith aboard could read it, but the shapes reminded Isran of stories he had heard about human writing. "Commander," Dessa said, her voice tight with excitement and worry. "I am picking up more details now. The hull material is unlike anything in our database. And Commander, I found something odd in the ship's outer systems. There appears to be a navigation log still broadcasting a weak signal, like a beacon. Can you read it?" Dessa worked at her console for a long moment. "I am translating the star chart data now. It will take a moment." Isran waited, watching the strange little ship grow larger on the main screen. It really was human. He was becoming more and more certain of that. This was likely the first human vessel any Kalith crew had ever encountered directly. He felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. This could be the beginning of first contact with the species everyone talked about, but nobody had truly met. "Commander," Dessa said suddenly, her voice sharp with alarm, "I have the navigation data. I need you to see this." Isran walked to her station again and looked down at the star chart displayed on her screen. His eyes moved across the pattern of stars, following lines that marked a travel route. The route began somewhere far outside Kalith space. a distance so great that Isrin could hardly imagine it, and it stretched across many star systems, weaving past known trade routes and empty regions of space. And it ended here, not just in this general area of space, not just near the border. The navigation route ended precisely at the coordinates of Keldrin Prime, the Calith homeworld, the very heart of their empire, hidden deep behind layers of defense and located nowhere on any public star chart that outsiders could access. Isrin stared at the screen for a long moment, unable to speak. Every hair on the back of his neck, or the closest thing his shell-covered body had to hair, seemed to stand up at once. "That cannot be correct," he finally said. "Run the analysis again." Dessa's fingers moved quickly across her console. A minute passed, then another. Finally she looked up at him, her face pale beneath her shell plating. "I ran it 3 times, Commander. The result is the same each time. This ship, before it went dark and started drifting, was traveling directly toward Keldrin Prime. Not toward this border region, not toward any of our outer colonies, straight to the capital world itself." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member turned to look at the small ship on the main screen, its curved hull glowing faintly in the light of the distant red star. A single unarmed human vessel, apparently on a direct course to the most secret and most protected location in the entire Calith Empire. "How is that possible?" asked Torin, the ship's weapons officer, breaking the silence. "Nobody outside the Empire knows where Keldrin Prime is located. We have kept that information hidden for centuries. Even our allies do not know the exact coordinates." Isrin did not have an answer. His mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. Perhaps the humans had captured a Calith ship somewhere, and tortured the location out of a prisoner. Perhaps they had spies deep inside the Empire who had been feeding information back to Earth for years. Or perhaps, and this was the thought that frightened him most, the humans simply already knew. Perhaps to a species like the humans, finding a hidden homeworld was such a simple task that hiding it had never actually worked at all. "Commander," Dessa said quietly, "what do we do?" Isrin straightened his back and tried to steady his voice, even though his hands were trembling slightly. He was the commander of this ship. His crew needed him to act with confidence, even if he did not feel confident at all. "We cannot let this ship continue on its course," he said. "Whatever the reason, whatever the intention, we cannot allow an unknown vessel to reach Keldrin Prime undetected. Bring us alongside. Prepare a boarding party. We are taking control of that ship." "And the crew, if there is one aboard?" Torin asked. "Take them alive if possible. We need answers, not corpses." The Vankesh moved closer, its docking arms extending toward the human vessel. The boarding party, 6 Calith soldiers in heavy armor, gathered near the airlock, weapons ready. Isrin watched from the bridge as the 2 ships connected with a soft metallic clang that echoed through the hull. "Airlock sealed," came the voice of the boarding team leader over the comm. "Beginning cutting procedure now." It took several minutes for the Calith soldiers to break through the human ship's outer hatch. The metal was tougher than anything they had cut through before, but eventually it gave way, and the soldiers moved inside, weapons raised, ready for anything. What they found surprised them all. The ship's interior was dim, lit only by a few emergency lights along the walls. The air inside was breathable, though colder than the soldiers expected. As they moved deeper into the vessel, they found the crew compartment, and there, strapped into a reclined chair, was a single human figure. Not dead, not fighting, simply resting, as if asleep, with a strange, calm expression on her face. "We have one human," the boarding leader reported. "Alive, unconscious, no visible injuries, no other crew members detected so far. This appears to be a very small vessel, built to carry only 1 or 2 people." Isrin felt a wave of relief mixed with confusion. A single human, alone, on a tiny ship, heading straight for their most secret world. It made no sense as an invasion. It made no sense as a spy mission either. Not with just one person, and no weapons that they could detect. "Bring her aboard the Vankesh," Isrin ordered. "Secure her in the medical bay, and keep at least 2 guards with her at all times. I want her ready to answer questions the moment she wakes." As the boarding team carried the sleeping human back through the connecting airlock, Isrin turned his attention back to the strange little ship still linked to his own vessel. Something about this whole situation felt wrong, though he could not say exactly why. A single unarmed human, sleeping peacefully, on a direct course to the most hidden location in Calith space. It was too strange, too calm, too easy. "Commander," Dessa said from her station, "I am picking up something else. A secondary transmission buried in the ship's systems. It looks like some kind of automated message, set to trigger under certain conditions." "What conditions?" Dessa's fingers moved across her controls, and her face grew paler as she read the results. "Commander, this message appears to be set to activate if the ship fails to check in with its home base within a certain window of time. Judging by the internal logs, that window closed 6 hours ago." Isrin felt his stomach twist into a tight knot. "What does the message say?" "I cannot translate all of it yet, but I am seeing repeated references to a location, coordinates. And Commander, the coordinates match this exact region of space, right here, right where we are now." The bridge fell into a heavy silence once more. Somewhere far away, on a world none of them had ever seen, someone was likely already reading a report that the small human ship had gone silent, and if the stories about humanity were even partly true, that silence would not go unanswered for long. Isrin looked at the sleeping human being carried through his ship's corridors on a stretcher, calm and unaware, or perhaps simply unbothered, by the situation unfolding around her. He looked at the strange little vessel still connected to his hull, carrying secrets he did not yet understand. And he looked at the vast darkness of space beyond his viewport, wondering what exactly his crew had just pulled out of the void. "Set a course back to Keldron Prime," he said finally. "Full alert status. Contact Fleet Command immediately. Tell them we may have just captured the beginning of something far bigger than any of us are ready for." As the Van Kesh turned and began its long journey home, towing the strange human vessel behind it, Commander Isrin Val could not shake the feeling that his quiet border patrol had just become the most important mission of his entire career. Somewhere out among the stars, a clock had already started ticking, though he had no way of knowing exactly how much time remained before it reached 0. The human woman woke slowly, blinking against the soft light of the Calith medical bay. 2 armed guards stood near the door, watching her with wide, nervous eyes. She looked around the room calmly, taking in the strange furniture, the unfamiliar equipment, and the 2 tall, shelled figures watching her every move. Instead of panic, her face showed something closer to mild curiosity. "Well," she said quietly, mostly to herself, "that answers that question." One of the guards immediately spoke into his comm unit, alerting the bridge that the prisoner was awake. Within minutes, Commander Isrin Val arrived at the medical bay, along with a translator drone that hovered near his shoulder. The Calith had developed basic translation software, using recordings of human speech gathered from old trade broadcasts, though it had never been tested on an actual human before. "Do you understand me?" Isrin asked, watching the drone convert his words into rough human speech. The woman studied him for a moment, before answering. "I understand you well enough. Your translator has an accent, but it works." "You are aboard the Calith vessel Van Kesh," Isrin said. "Your ship was found drifting near our border, on a direct course toward a location deep inside our territory. I am going to ask you several questions, and I expect honest answers." The woman sat up slightly in her bed, wincing a little from the movement. "I imagine you have quite a few questions." "My name is Captain Elena Voss, United Earth Survey Fleet. I was piloting a solo scout vessel on a long-range mapping mission. That is all I really need to tell you, but I suspect that is not all you want to hear." Isrin's grip tightened on the edge of the medical bed frame. "Your ship's navigation system was set for a course directly to Keldron Prime. That location is not listed on any public star chart. It is the most heavily protected secret in our entire empire. Explain how a lone human scout ship came to be heading straight toward it." Elena's expression did not change much, though a small, almost amused smile crossed her lips. "I was mapping this region of space, as part of a long-term survey project. My ship's onboard systems keep records of many star systems, including ones my superiors already have data on from older missions. It is entirely possible my navigation computer simply had your homeworld's location logged from before, and my course happened to line up with it." "That is not an answer," Isrin said sharply. "That is a guess, dressed up as an explanation." Elena shrugged slightly. "It is the only explanation I have for you right now, Commander. I was not given a mission briefing that said, fly to the secret Calith capital and start trouble. I was simply doing my job, surveying a region of space, when my ship suffered a system failure, and I went into emergency sleep mode to conserve life support. The rest, apparently, you already know better than I do. Isrin studied her closely, trying to read any sign of deception in her face, but human expressions were unfamiliar to him, and he found it difficult to judge whether she was telling the truth. He decided to try a different approach. Your people have quite a reputation among the empires bordering your territory, he said carefully. Stories of wars fought and won with terrifying speed. Stories of enemies who surrendered everything, rather than continue fighting. Is any of that true? For the first time, something flickered across Elena's face, something that looked almost like sadness. Some of it is true. Humanity fought a war once, a long time ago, against a species called the Drask. It was not a war we wanted, it was forced on us, and when it ended badly for the other side. We do not enjoy telling that story, Commander. We do not consider it something to be proud of. We consider it something to be avoided at all costs in the future. And yet here you are, Isrin said, on a ship heading directly toward our most secret world, only hours after your automated systems apparently sent a distress signal back to your fleet command. That does not sound like a coincidence to me. Elena's eyebrows rose slightly. A distress signal? I was not aware my systems had sent anything. If that is true, then my fleet will already know something happened to me, and they will act according to standard protocol. And what, Isrin asked slowly, is your standard protocol? Elena hesitated for the first time since waking up. She looked at the two guards near the door, then back at Isrin, and finally spoke in a quieter voice. When a survey ship goes silent and misses its check-in window, the nearest fleet response group is dispatched to investigate. It is meant to protect our people. If a scout goes missing, we do not simply write them off. We go and find out what happened. Isrin felt his earlier fears returning, stronger than before. How large is this response group? How far away is it? How soon would it arrive in this region of space? I do not know the exact numbers, Commander. That information is not something I carry with me on a solo scouting mission. But if I had to guess, based on standard fleet doctrine, I would say you have days, not weeks, before someone comes looking for me. The room fell silent. Isrin turned away from the bed and walked toward the small viewport in the corner of the medical bay, staring out at the stars beyond. He thought about his own homeworld, its cities and mountains and oceans, its billions of Kalith citizens who had never once considered the idea that alien warships might someday appear in their skies. He thought about the ancient laws that had kept Keldron Prime hidden for so many centuries, laws that had apparently done nothing at all against a species that could seemingly find it without even trying. Why would your people send a warship to search for a single missing scout? He asked without turning around. On my world, we would not risk an entire fleet division over the loss of one small vessel. Elena's voice was calm but firm when she answered. Because on my world, every single person matters, Commander. We do not leave anyone behind if we can help it. That is not a threat. That is simply how we operate. I understand it might look frightening from your side, especially given whatever stories you have heard about us. But I promise you, it is not meant as aggression. It is meant as loyalty to our own people. Isrin turned back to face her, his expression hard to read even for another Kalith. Loyalty that could end with a fleet of human warships appearing above my homeworld. Possibly, Elena admitted, though I would remind you, Commander, that you are the one who pulled my ship out of open space and took me prisoner. If you had simply left me drifting, my fleet would have found an empty region of space and an unresponsive scout ship, and likely nothing more than a rescue and recovery mission would have followed. Now, because you have taken me captive, that same rescue mission will likely become something else entirely. The words hit Isrin harder than he expected. He had acted to protect his people, following standard procedure for dealing with an unknown threat, and yet Elena's calm explanation made it sound as though his own actions might have made the situation far more dangerous than it needed to be. I did what any responsible commander would do, he said, though his voice carried less certainty than before. I am not blaming you, Commander, Elena said gently. I understand why you did what you did. I am simply telling you what is likely to happen next, so that you and your people can prepare for it properly, rather than being caught by surprise. Isrin left the medical bay a short time later, his mind heavy with worry. He made his way to the ship's small conference room, where his senior officers were already waiting, having listened to the entire conversation through the ship's internal monitoring system. Torin, the weapons officer, looked particularly troubled. "Commander, if what she says is true, we may have days before a human warship arrives in this system," Torin said. "We should prepare our defenses immediately." "And if we prepare defenses," Dessa added quietly, "we risk turning a rescue mission into an actual conflict. If they arrive expecting to find their lost scout, and instead find our fleet arrayed for battle, that could be exactly the spark that starts a war none of us want." Isrin rubbed his forehead, feeling the weight of the decision resting entirely on his shoulders. "Contact Fleet Command. Explain the full situation. Let the Council decide how to proceed from here. This is bigger than a single patrol ship can handle alone." The message was sent, and within hours, a response arrived from Keldron Prime itself. The Kalith High Council, the governing body of the entire Empire, wanted the human prisoner and her ship brought directly to the capital world for further study and questioning. Despite the obvious danger of bringing an unknown vessel closer to their most protected location, the Council reasoned that keeping the prisoner and the mystery ship at a safe distance would teach them nothing, while a closer study might reveal exactly how the humans had known the location of Keldron Prime in the first place. Isrin did not like the order, but he was a loyal officer, and he followed it. The Vankesh changed course, moving deeper into Kalith territory, carrying its strange cargo and its calm, unreadable prisoner toward the very heart of the Empire. During the journey, Isrin visited Elena several more times, partly out of duty and partly out of a growing curiosity that he could not quite explain. Each conversation revealed a little more about humanity, though never enough to fully satisfy his questions. Elena spoke of Earth's history, of the long, difficult centuries humanity had spent fighting among themselves, before finally uniting as one species. She spoke of the war with the Drask, though she gave few details, and Isrin noticed she seemed genuinely uncomfortable discussing it, as though the memory still carried real pain even generations later. "You almost sound as though you regret winning that war," Isrin said during one of their talks. Elena was quiet for a long moment before answering. "We regret that it happened at all, Commander. Winning did not undo the losses on either side. It simply meant humanity survived to keep making mistakes another day. I would rather my people never have to fight that kind of war again, against anyone, including yours." Isrin found himself believing her, though he could not fully explain why. There was something about the steady calm in her voice, something that did not match the terrifying stories he had grown up hearing. And yet, beneath that calm, he sensed a kind of quiet strength that made him understand, at least a little, how such stories might have started in the first place. As the Vankesh approached the outer defense perimeter of Keldron Prime, Isrin stood on the bridge once more, watching his homeworld appear as a small blue and green dot on the main screen. Somewhere out among the stars behind them, a human fleet might already be moving in their direction, drawn by the silence of a single lost scout ship. Whatever happened next, Isrin knew that the peaceful ignorance his people had enjoyed for so long, believing themselves safely hidden from the wider dangers of the galaxy, was about to come to an end. Far away from the Vankesh and its slow journey toward Keldron Prime, aboard the United Earth Defense Fleet flagship Resolute, Admiral Thomas Reyes stood in the command center, studying a report that had just come across his desk. The words on the screen were simple enough, but their meaning weighed heavily on him. Scout Vessel Meridian, call sign Voss 7, missed scheduled check-in by 6 hours. No response to standard hailing attempts. Last known position places vessel near the outer edge of an unmapped stellar region, within possible range of an unidentified but technologically capable civilization. Reyes had served in the United Earth Fleet for over 30 years. He remembered the old days, before humanity had fully united, before the Drask War had forced every nation on Earth to set aside their differences and stand together against a common enemy. He remembered the fear of those years, the uncertainty of not knowing whether humanity would survive at all, and he remembered the strange, uneasy peace that had followed their victory, a peace built on the quiet understanding that humanity would never again allow itself to be caught unprepared. That was why, after the war ended, the United Earth government had created the Long-Range Survey Program. Small scout ships, crewed by a single highly trained pilot, would spend months at a time mapping distant regions of space, gathering data on potential threats and potential allies alike. It was slow, careful work, meant to make sure humanity never again walked blindly into a fight it did not see coming. And it was why every survey ship carried an automatic distress protocol, one that could not be disabled by the pilot alone, designed specifically to alert Fleet Command if a ship went silent for too long. "Do we know anything about the region she was mapping?" Reyes asked his intelligence officer, a sharp young woman named Captain Priya Nair. "Very little, sir," Priya answered, pulling up a star chart on the main display. "This sector has never been surveyed in detail before. We have some old data suggesting a technologically advanced civilization exists somewhere in the area, based on faint communication signals intercepted decades ago, but we have never made direct contact." "And Voss's last transmission?" "Nothing unusual, sir. Routine mapping data, right up until the automatic distress beacon activated. Based on her transmitted coordinates before going silent, she was very close to entering a region we have flagged as likely inhabited territory." Reyes stared at the star chart for a long moment. Elena Voss was one of the most experienced pilots in the entire survey program. She did not panic easily, and she did not make careless mistakes. If her ship had gone silent, it was either a serious technical failure or something else had happened to her. "Assemble the response group," Reyes said finally. "Standard first contact protocol. I want the Resolute and her escort ships ready to move within the hour." Priya nodded, though her expression remained tense. "Sir, if there truly is an inhabited system out there, moving in with a full response group could be seen as aggressive. Should we not send a smaller, less threatening force first?" Reyes shook his head slowly. "We tried that once before, Captain. A long time ago, before your time. We sent small, unarmed teams to make peaceful contact, trusting that good intentions would be recognized and respected. It did not always work out well for us. I will not make that mistake again. We go in prepared, but we go in with clear intentions to talk first, and fight only if necessary. Voss is one of ours, and we are not leaving her out there without knowing what happened." The response group assembled quickly. 5 ships in total, led by the Resolute, moved out from the edge of surveyed human space and began the long journey toward the region where Elena Voss had last been seen. It would take several days to arrive, even at the fleet's best speed, giving Reyes plenty of time to think about what they might find when they got there. He thought about the old stories, the ones humanity rarely spoke about openly, about how the war with the Drask had ended. He remembered the final battle, the terrible cost on both sides, and the strange quiet that had settled over human space in the years since. Humanity had won, but victory had come at a price that still lingered in the collective memory of an entire generation. Reyes did not want another war. He did not think anyone in the fleet wanted another war. But he also knew that humanity could not afford to appear weak or hesitant, not when so much still remained unknown about the wider galaxy beyond their borders. Meanwhile, deep in Calith space, the Vankesh finally arrived at Keldron Prime. Isrin watched from the bridge as his homeworld grew larger on the main screen, its familiar continents and oceans a comforting sight after the tension of the journey. But comfort quickly gave way to anxiety as the ship was directed toward a heavily guarded research facility on the outskirts of the capital city, where a team of Calith scientists and council representatives were already waiting to examine both the prisoner and her mysterious vessel. Elena was escorted from the Vankesh under heavy guard, though she showed no signs of fear or resistance. She walked calmly through the unfamiliar corridors of the research facility, observing everything around her with quiet interest, as though she were simply visiting a new city rather than being held as a captive by an alien civilization. The lead scientist assigned to the case, an older Calith named Director Morel Kess, met with Isrin shortly after Elena had been settled into a secure but comfortable holding room. "Commander Val," Morel said, her voice carrying the weariness of someone who had already spent long hours studying the strange human vessel, "I must tell you, what we have found so far is troubling." "What have you learned?" Isrin asked. Morel gestured for him to follow her to a nearby viewing room, where technicians were carefully examining the interior systems of the small human scout ship. "This vessel, small as it is, carries technology far beyond anything we currently possess. Its computing systems are compact but incredibly powerful. Its hull material is stronger than anything in our shipyards, and most troubling of all, we found something buried deep within its navigation computer." "What did you find?" Morel pulled up a display showing a complex web of star charts and data points. This ship was not simply mapping empty space at random, Commander. It was following a very specific survey pattern, one clearly designed to locate and catalog every significant star system in this region, including hidden or heavily disguised locations like our own homeworld. Based on the sophistication of this survey pattern, I believe this was far from the first such mission the humans have run. This pilot may simply be one of many, sent out over years, quietly mapping this entire section of the galaxy. Isrin felt a chill run through him. You are saying they already have a detailed map of our empire, even the parts we have kept hidden for centuries? I am saying it is very possible, yes. And Commander, there is something else. Morel pulled up another display, this one showing a diagram of a small device located within the ship's core systems. This appears to be some kind of automated distress and recall system, separate from the pilot's own controls. Based on our analysis, it activated automatically several hours before we intercepted the vessel, and it likely transmitted a signal back toward human territory. We already suspected as much, Isrin said quietly. Yes, but Commander, based on the power and range of this device, and assuming standard travel speeds for a species with technology at this level, I believe a human response force could arrive in this region within a matter of days, not weeks. Possibly sooner. The words hung heavy in the air between them. Isrin thought about the peaceful cities of Keldron Prime, the quiet daily lives of billions of Calith citizens who had no idea their world's greatest secret had likely never truly been a secret at all. He thought about the ancient laws protecting the homeworld's location, laws that suddenly felt almost foolish in light of what the humans apparently already knew. The Council must be informed immediately, Isrin said, and we need to determine, as quickly as possible, whether this coming human force intends peace or war. I agree, Morel said, which is why I believe we should speak with the prisoner again, Commander. Not as an interrogation this time, but as an honest conversation. If she is telling the truth about her people's intentions, we may be able to prepare a proper response, one that avoids conflict entirely. Isrin nodded slowly, though a knot of worry remained tight in his chest. He made his way back to the holding room where Elena was being kept, finding her seated calmly near the room's single window, looking out at the unfamiliar Calith skyline stretching beyond the facility's walls. Your people are coming, Isrin said simply, standing near the doorway. Elena turned to look at him, her expression unreadable for a moment, before softening slightly. I assumed as much. I am sorry, Commander. I did not mean to bring this kind of trouble to your world. Your director believes we may have only days before your fleet arrives, Isrin continued. I need to know, honestly, what will happen when they do. Will your people attack? Elena was quiet for a long moment, considering her answer carefully. I do not believe they will attack first, Commander. That is not how we operate, not anymore. But I will not lie to you, and tell you they will simply turn around and leave either. They will want answers. They will want to know what happened to me, and they will want to see with their own eyes that I am safe and unharmed. And if they do not find those answers satisfying, Elena met his gaze directly, her voice calm but firm. Then it will depend entirely on how your people choose to respond when they arrive, Commander. I believe there is still a path forward here that avoids conflict entirely. But it will require both sides to be willing to talk honestly with one another, rather than acting purely out of fear. Isrin studied her for a long moment, weighing her words carefully against everything he had learned since first discovering her ship drifting near the border. He thought about the ancient stories of humanity's terrifying reputation, and he thought about the calm, steady woman sitting before him now, who seemed far more concerned with avoiding conflict than causing it. I will speak with the Council, he said finally. I will recommend we prepare for peaceful contact, not war, but I cannot promise they will listen to me. Thank you, Commander, Elena said quietly. For what it is worth, I believe that is the wisest path available to both our peoples right now. As Isrin left the holding room and made his way toward the council chambers, he could not shake the growing feeling that the fate of his entire civilization now rested on a series of decisions being made in the span of just a few short days. Decisions that could either open the door to a new and valuable alliance, or plunge his people into a conflict they were almost certainly unprepared to survive. The Calith High Council chamber was a vast circular room, lined with tall windows that looked out over the capital city of Keldron Prime. 12 council members sat in a raised half-circle, their expressions ranging from calm patience to visible anxiety, as Commander Isrin Val stood before them, delivering his report on everything that had happened since the Van Kesh first discovered the drifting human scout ship. "And you believe," said Councillor Bresk, an older Caliph with a deep, gravelly voice, "that we should simply wait and welcome this human fleet with open arms, after everything we have learned about their capabilities?" "I believe, Councillor," Isrin answered carefully, "that preparing our defenses for open war would be the more dangerous choice. If the humans arrive intending peaceful contact, and instead find our fleet arrayed for battle, that could easily provoke the very conflict we are trying to avoid. The prisoner, Captain Voss, has been honest and cooperative throughout her captivity. I believe her when she says her people do not wish to start a war." "And if you are wrong?" asked another counselor, a sharp-voiced woman named Thessa. "If this calm and cooperative prisoner is simply buying time for her fleet to arrive and catch us unprepared?" Isrin had no perfect answer to that question, and he knew it. "Then we will have lost valuable preparation time, Counselor. But I still believe it is the wiser risk to take. Our scientists have already confirmed the humans possess technology beyond our own. If they intended aggression, I do not believe a show of force on our part would meaningfully change the outcome of any conflict. Our best chance lies in demonstrating good faith and a genuine desire to talk, rather than provoking a fight we cannot win." The council debated for hours, voices rising and falling as different members argued for caution, for strength, for diplomacy, and for outright fear-driven defense. In the end, a narrow majority decided on a middle path. The Caliph fleet would move to a defensive position near Keldron Prime, ready to respond if attacked, but under strict orders not to fire first under any circumstances. A diplomatic delegation would be prepared to meet the human fleet the moment it arrived, led personally by Isrin, given his direct experience with the human prisoner. 3 days later, exactly as Elena had predicted, sensor stations across the outer edge of Caliph space detected the arrival of 5 unfamiliar vessels, moving in tight formation toward Keldron Prime. The human fleet had arrived. Aboard the Resolute, Admiral Reyes studied the sensor readings of the system ahead, watching as dozens of Caliph warships began forming a defensive perimeter around a lush, green and blue world at the system's center. "Report," Reyes said to Priya, who stood beside him at the command station. "We are picking up a large defensive fleet, sir, positioned around what appears to be their homeworld. No weapons have been powered up yet, and no hostile maneuvers detected. They appear to be holding position rather than advancing toward us." Reyes allowed himself a small measure of relief at that news, though he remained cautious. "Any communication attempts from their side?" "Not yet, sir, but our scanners are picking up a single vessel breaking away from their main formation. It appears to be moving toward us alone, unarmed, broadcasting what looks like a standard hailing signal." "Put it through," Reyes ordered. A moment later, the image of Commander Isrin Val appeared on the main view screen, his translator drone working quickly to convert his words into understandable human speech. Reyes studied the alien commander carefully, noting the tension visible, even in an unfamiliar species' body language. "I am Commander Isrin Val, of the Caliph Defense Fleet," Isrin said, his voice carrying clearly, despite the translation delay. "We are holding this position peacefully. We have your pilot, Captain Elena Voss, safe and unharmed, aboard our homeworld. We wish to avoid conflict between our peoples, if at all possible." Reyes felt a wave of relief at hearing that Elena was alive and unharmed, though he kept his expression carefully neutral. "This is Admiral Thomas Reyes of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We are relieved to hear Captain Voss is safe. We have come to retrieve her, and to better understand what happened to cause her ship to go silent. We do not wish for conflict either, Commander, but I will require proof of her well-being before we proceed further." "That is reasonable," Isrin replied. "We can arrange a direct communication between you and Captain Voss immediately, if you wish." Within minutes, Elena's face appeared on a secondary screen, patched through from the Caliph research facility where she was being held. She looked tired, but otherwise unharmed, and a small smile crossed her face at the sight of the Resolute's familiar bridge in the background. "Admiral," she said, "it is good to see a friendly face. I am fine. My ship suffered a system malfunction, and I ended up drifting into Caliph territory before I could fully repair it. Commander Vol and his crew have treated me fairly since bringing me aboard. I do not believe they intend us any harm. Reyes studied her closely, looking for any sign of coercion or forced statements, but Elena's manner seemed genuine, calm, and consistent with the experienced, level-headed officer he had always known her to be. "Thank you, Captain," Reyes said. "We will begin arrangements for your safe return immediately." He turned his attention back to Isrin's image on the main screen. "Commander, I propose a formal meeting between representatives of our two peoples to discuss the circumstances of this incident and to establish proper channels for future contact between our civilizations. I believe it would benefit both our peoples to avoid misunderstandings like this one in the future." Isrin hesitated only briefly before answering. "I will relay your proposal to our High Council immediately, Admiral. I believe they will agree to such a meeting, given the circumstances." The following day, a small human delegation, led personally by Admiral Reyes and accompanied by Priya and a handful of senior officers, traveled aboard a shuttle, escorted by Calith patrol ships, toward the surface of Keldrin Prime. The Calith High Council had agreed to host the meeting at their central government building, a decision that had not come easily, given the deep unease many council members still felt about allowing human representatives so close to the heart of their empire. The meeting itself was tense at first, filled with careful, measured words from both sides. Reyes explained humanity's long-range survey program in detail, acknowledging openly that Earth had indeed been quietly mapping large sections of the galaxy for decades, including regions occupied by civilizations that had never made formal contact with humanity. He explained that this was not intended as an act of aggression or espionage, but rather as a defensive measure, born from the painful lessons of the Drask War, when humanity had been caught almost completely unaware of a hostile species, until it was nearly too late. "We do not survey other civilizations to plan invasions, Counselor," Reyes said, addressing the assembled Calith leaders directly. "We survey to avoid being surprised again. I understand that knowing we possess the location of your homeworld, even accidentally, must be deeply unsettling. I offer my sincere apology for the distress this incident has caused your people." Counselor Bresk studied Reyes carefully before responding. "Your apology is noted, Admiral, though I confess it does little to ease the discomfort of knowing our greatest secret was apparently no secret at all to your people. How long have you known the location of our homeworld?" Reyes glanced briefly at Priya before answering honestly. "Based on the survey records recovered from Captain Voss's vessel, our long-range mapping projects likely identified your system's general location several years ago, though this appears to be the first time one of our survey ships came close enough to confirm the exact coordinates of your capital world directly. I want to stress, Counselor, that this information has never been shared beyond a very small circle within our defense fleet. It has never been used, nor was it ever intended to be used, for any hostile purpose." The council members exchanged uneasy glances at this admission, though several seemed to relax slightly at the Admiral's evident sincerity. Counselor Thessa, who had been among the more cautious voices during earlier debates, finally spoke up. "Admiral Reyes, if what you say is true, then perhaps this unfortunate incident may yet serve a useful purpose. Rather than existing in mutual ignorance and fear of one another, perhaps it is time our two civilizations established honest and open communication, so that misunderstandings like this one need not happen again." Reyes nodded firmly. "I agree completely, Counselor. That is precisely what I hope to achieve here today. Humanity does not seek conquest or domination. We seek security, and increasingly, we seek genuine allies among the stars. I believe the Calith Empire, with its clear commitment to peace and careful governance, could become exactly that kind of ally, if both our peoples are willing to build that trust honestly, one step at a time." The negotiations continued for several more hours, covering topics ranging from formal diplomatic recognition between the two civilizations, to agreements on future contact protocols, to discussions about eventually establishing trade and cultural exchange programs. Isrin, standing quietly near the back of the chamber throughout the proceedings, found himself reflecting on how quickly the situation had shifted from potential disaster to genuine, if cautious, hope. He thought about his first sight of the strange little human ship drifting near the border, the fear that had gripped him when he learned of its destination, and the tense days that had followed as his people prepared for what many had feared would become their first real conflict with the mysterious and terrifying humans of legend. Instead, standing in this chamber now, Watching Admiral Reyes and the Caliph Council slowly work toward a genuine understanding, Isrin felt something he had not expected to feel throughout this entire ordeal. Real hope for a peaceful future between their two peoples. As the meeting drew toward its close, Elena Voss was formally released into human custody, cleared to return to the Resolute alongside Admiral Reyes and the rest of the delegation. Before leaving, she sought out Isrin one final time, finding him standing near a window overlooking the Caliph capital city below. "Thank you, Commander," she said quietly, "for treating me fairly, and for arguing for peace when others around you were arguing for war. I do not think today would have gone nearly as well without your efforts." Isrin studied her for a long moment before answering. "You saved us both a great deal of trouble, Captain, simply by telling the truth throughout your captivity. I hope this is only the beginning of a much better relationship between our two peoples." Elena smiled slightly. "So do I, Commander. So do I." As the human shuttle finally departed the surface of Keldron Prime, carrying Elena Voss back toward the waiting Resolute, Isrin watched it go from the window of the council chamber, already wondering what new chapter in his people's history had just begun. 6 months passed after Elena Voss returned safely to human territory aboard the Resolute, and in that time, the relationship between humanity and the Caliph Empire grew steadily, moving from cautious diplomacy towards something that increasingly resembled genuine friendship between two very different civilizations. A permanent human embassy had been established on Keldron Prime, staffed by a small team of diplomats and cultural liaisons who worked closely with the Caliph government to build trust between their peoples. Similarly, a Caliph delegation now maintained a presence on Earth, learning about human history, culture, and technology, while sharing knowledge of their own long and peaceful civilization in return. Commander Isrin Val had been promoted, given a new role as the primary Caliph liaison officer, working directly with the human fleet. It was a position he had not expected to receive, given how the entire situation had begun, but the Council had recognized his steady judgment throughout the crisis, and decided he was exactly the right person to help guide the delicate early stages of this new alliance. He stood now aboard the Resolute, once again looking out at the stars through a viewport, though this time as an honored guest rather than a wartime commander preparing for potential conflict. Elena Voss walked up beside him, carrying 2 cups of steaming Caliph tea, a drink she had grown surprisingly fond of during her recovery period. "You look thoughtful, Commander," she said, handing him one of the cups. Isrin accepted it gratefully. "I am simply reflecting, Captain. It is strange to think how close our two peoples came to conflict, all because of a single missing scout ship, and a set of coordinates neither of us expected the other to know." Elena smiled, taking a sip of her own tea. "It is strange, yes, but perhaps also fortunate, in its own way. Sometimes the worst possible beginning leads to the best possible outcome. I doubt our formal diplomatic contact would have happened nearly as quickly if my ship had not malfunctioned right on your border." "A fair point," Isrin admitted, "though I admit I did not expect us to become such good associates when I first pulled your unconscious body out of that tiny scout ship." Elena laughed softly. "Nor did I expect to wake up as a prisoner aboard an alien warship, only to end up helping negotiate the beginning of a full diplomatic alliance a few months later. Life has a strange sense of humor sometimes." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Admiral Reyes, who approached with a datapad in hand and a satisfied expression on his face. "Commander Val, Captain Voss, I have some updates you will both want to hear." "What is it, Admiral?" Elena asked. "The Joint Scientific Exchange Program has officially been approved by both our government and the Caliph Council," Reyes said. "Beginning next month, human and Caliph scientists will begin working together on several shared research projects, starting with advanced propulsion technology and long-range communication systems. It seems your engineers are quite curious about our hull materials, Commander, and our own scientists are equally interested in some of your energy shielding technology." Isrin felt a genuine sense of pride at hearing this news. "That is excellent, Admiral. I believe both our civilizations stand to benefit greatly from this kind of open cooperation." "There is more," Reyes continued. "The Caliph Council has also formally requested that Earth share more detailed information about our long-range survey program, not out of suspicion this time, but because several other civilizations along our shared border regions have expressed interest in establishing similar contact protocols, Now that word has spread about how successfully our two peoples resolved this situation. Elena raised an eyebrow with interest. Other civilizations? I take it word travels fast out here. Faster than I expected, honestly, Reyes admitted. It seems the story of how a single lost human scout ship nearly triggered a conflict, only to instead spark a full diplomatic alliance, has become something of a well-known tale among several nearby species. A few have already reached out through Calith diplomatic channels, expressing cautious interest in meeting representatives from Earth directly. Isrin could not help but smile slightly at this news. It seems, Admiral, that your people's reputation for terrifying strength is slowly being balanced out by a growing reputation for fairness and honesty, at least among those species willing to give you a genuine chance. I certainly hope so, Commander, Reyes said. I would much rather be known throughout the galaxy as a species willing to build honest friendships than one known only for the wars we were forced to fight in our past. The three of them stood together for a while longer, watching the stars stretch out beyond the Resolute's viewport, each lost in their own thoughts about the strange and unexpected path that had brought their two civilizations together. Later that evening, back on Keldron Prime, Isrin found himself standing before the Calith High Council once more, though this time, the atmosphere in the chamber felt entirely different from his first tense report so many months earlier. The council members listened with genuine interest as he described the growing partnership between their empire and the humans of Earth, and the potential benefits such an alliance might bring to both civilizations in the years ahead. Commander Vol, Councillor Thessa said once his report concluded, I believe I speak for the entire council when I say we are grateful for the steady judgment you showed throughout this entire situation. Had you acted with less caution and understanding during those first tense days, I fear our current relationship with humanity might look very different indeed. Thank you, Counselor, Isrin replied, though I believe much of the credit belongs equally to Captain Voss and to Admiral Reyes, both of whom showed remarkable patience and honesty throughout our early dealings with one another. Peace, I have learned, is rarely built by one side alone. It requires effort and good faith from everyone involved. As the council session ended and Isrin made his way back toward his quarters, through the familiar corridors of the government building, he found himself thinking once more about that quiet border patrol so many months ago, when his greatest concern had been little more than the boredom of another uneventful shift. He thought about the moment Dessa had first detected the strange little human ship, and the fear that had gripped him upon learning its true destination. He thought about the tense negotiations, the careful diplomacy, and the slow, steady building of trust that had followed in the months since. What had begun as a moment of genuine terror, the discovery that their most closely guarded secret had apparently never truly been a secret at all, had instead become the foundation for something far more valuable than continued isolation ever could have provided. The Calith Empire, once content to remain quietly hidden within its own borders, now stood on the edge of a much larger galactic community, ready to build new alliances, share new knowledge, and face whatever challenges the wider universe might bring, no longer alone in the vast darkness of space. Back aboard the Resolute, Elena Voss stood once more in her private quarters, reviewing the final details of her official mission report before submitting it to Fleet Command. She paused for a long moment, looking at the closing lines she had written, words that captured, as simply as she could manage, everything this strange and unexpected journey had taught her. Initial contact with the Calith Empire began under difficult and uncertain circumstances, born from an unplanned system malfunction and a startling discovery regarding survey data our fleet had gathered over many years. What could easily have become a serious diplomatic incident, or worse, was instead resolved through patience, honesty, and a mutual willingness on both sides to seek understanding rather than conflict. I believe this incident demonstrates an important lesson for humanity's future dealings among the stars, that even our accidental discoveries, however alarming they may initially appear to those we encounter, can become the foundation for genuine and lasting friendship, provided both sides remain willing to talk honestly with one another, rather than giving in to fear. She saved the report and sent it off through the fleet's secure communication network, then walked to her viewport, looking out at the distant stars stretching endlessly before her. Somewhere out there, other unexplored regions of space still waited, filled with unknown civilizations, unknown dangers, and unknown opportunities for friendship not yet discovered. Her work as a survey pilot was far from finished, but for the first time in a long while, she found herself looking forward to whatever came next with genuine hope, rather than simple caution. The story of the lost scout ship that accidentally revealed a hidden alien homeworld would go on to become a well-known tale, told and retold across both human and Kalith space in the years that followed, a reminder that even the most frightening beginnings could sometimes lead toward the most valuable friendships, if only both sides were brave enough and honest enough to see them through.